And what surprisingly is one of Eddie Murphy's first holiday movies, at least outside of, I think there was a Shrek Christmas movie, but live action speaking. While he is the star, it's really Jillian Bell and Chris Reed that steal the show and make it so that not only will the adults laugh, but more than likely the kids too. To summarize the movie, Chris is really into Christmas to the point where you can submit that between how he names his children to his wife, everything is very Christmas focused. And you can't really blame him. Chris works a sales job during the day, so he doesn't really get too much in the way of creativity through that. So, between jokingly naming his first daughter Joy, as in Joy to the World, his only son Nick, as in Saint Nick, and then his second daughter Holly, as in Dash the Halls, Bowers of Holly, and then marrying a woman named Carol, you get there's a theme in his life about what makes him happy. And talking about what makes him happy, in terms of Christmas, he's not the kind like his next door neighbor, or rather across the street neighbor, who gets the big blow up stuff and all that. No. Chris hand makes all the stuff he puts on his lawn, from candy canes, black angels, nutcrackers, you name it. But one thing souring his Christmas this year is the fact that he gets laid off from his job. And thankfully, Carol's up for a promotion, but at the same time, two incomes is better than one, especially since Joy's about to go off to college and Nick is not too far behind. So when he hears, and that being Chris, about this $100,000 competition where on the lane that he lives on, the best looking house gets $100,000, he recognizes that that can keep him and his family afloat for a good year. So he tries to, like everybody else, hit up Walmart, Target, the dollar store, but once that competition got announced, everything got wiped out. So, luckily for him and Holly, who's his sidekick for most of the movie, they discover Kringles, which is some weird random store underneath a bridge, or rather underpass. Anyway, they go inside, Christmas store filled with everything you can imagine, and in that store, the only employee is Pepper. Pepper's off-putting, causes jump scares throughout the movie so that you're aware, and she helps Chris spend over $500 in order to try to spruce up his lawn, and then she gives him a CVS length receipt, asks for his signature, and unbeknownst to Chris, what he is signing is a contract with her. One in which, if he doesn't find a certain amount of rings between when the contract is signed and then 8 o'clock on Christmas Eve, he will end up like one of Pepper's Christmas figurines that she has in her little Christmas village. And so begins Chris, once he realizes what happened, having to find these rings, get his family out of these crazy situations, and even elicit the help of some of the figurines that Pepper's already tricked, which includes Pip, Gary, and I believe the last one is Cordelia. And he has to hope that, considering Pepper is a rogue elf who thinks Santa's gone soft and now she wants to punish people on the naughty list, he has to hope so badly that he can get beyond her tricks in order to keep himself becoming a figurine and trapped with her forever. So when it comes to this movie, one of the major highlights for us was Gary. And the reason why Gary's a highlight is because when it comes to the adults in the room, Gary is going to be the one that's going to make you laugh. And that's because even though this movie is rated PG, the type of innuendo that Gary presents is PG-13, especially when it comes to his interactions either with Cordelia, but mainly Chris's wife, Carol. And it's very comical. And to add on, pentatonics is in this movie. And whether it's Gary, Chris, or other people, whenever somebody's about to say a curse word, they start singing, and it's very comical. But aside from Gary, one of the other highlights for us is Pepper. And granted, the way Jillian Bell plays her definitely feels like she's trying to audition for Hocus Pocus 3, but even with saying that, you have to love the way she handles Pepper, or Peppermint if you want to use her full name. between the jump scares, the way she moves like an old school Disney witch, maybe one for Broadway, there's so much character and personality embedded in Pepper that she becomes a memorable character, and it's not just another villain thrown out to a potentially family push movie that is easily forgotten. She will stick with you a bit. And then when you added her motive is that she thinks Santa's gone soft, she's an elf that's gone rogue and uses her magic to try to punish people who she deems as naughty, even if it's something just in a minor way they're naughty. I mean, you can't justify what she's doing, but you understand what she's doing. Because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, elves are like Oompa Loompas in terms of they're expected to do a massive amount of work with little credit and it all makes someone else look good. Meanwhile, their situation is basically slavery. The elves, like the Oompa Loompas, find themselves toiling all day for other people, and after some point you can understand them cracking. And while we haven't had an Oompa Loompa Revolution movie, in some ways, Candy Cane Lane through Pepper kind of shows you what would happen if the elf or a elf decided that, you know what, I'm tired of this. Why am I doing this stuff for humans who are selfish people? And Santa gives so many chances to. I'm going to take it upon myself to go beyond them getting the proverbial piece of coal and truly punish them. The last highlight for us deals with the fact that even though this is very much an Eddie Murphy starring film, I would submit that it doesn't all revolve around him, even though he's clearly, the main character. For whether you want to talk about Joy, who's a track star who's trying to get into a specific college, you want to talk about Nick, who isn't the best in academics, but he is very much into music. He's trying to get the same type of validation that his parents put into everything else in terms of academics, but, really believe in his music career. Or even Holly, who, yes, may be in many ways just Chris's sidekick, but at the same time, because everybody else is so busy, you can see that Chris kind of leans on Holly in some ways as a moral compass, but also as a partner in crime, since Carol has a full-time job. And speaking of Carol, not only does she have a full-time job, but she is shown to be very good at her job in terms of her doing logistics, to the point where it can be almost confusing what the hell she's talking about. And it's just building up these characters to the point where it's clear that they have their own lives beyond Chris. And even, something else that needs to be noted, I love the fact that when it comes to Chris and Carol, especially because of movies like Genie and Dashing Through the Snow, I love the fact that they're not a couple that's on the verge of divorce or separation, or seem like a mini couple where it seems that their children are proof that maybe at one time they were intimate and loved each other, but now it's just like we're stuck with each other because we've been together so long. There's intimacy, there is definitely attraction still in that marriage, and I love to see it. So, getting to the on the fence topic. Now, as a highlight, yes, we appreciate Gary, his innuendo, and the whole pentatonics thing where they, cover up people cursing. But at the same time, with this being a PG movie, not a PG-13 movie, I gotta admit, even though I wouldn't have an issue if I had a kid, little cousin, sibling, or whatever, watching this movie, at the same time, if I was somebody who's a bit more conservative, I may have a problem with having my kid exposed to Holly saying maybe ass a few times, or else the innuendo and the barely covered up cursing that's done in this movie. But I mean, it's really based off of who's watching this or who they're watching it with, because this is definitely a hard PG movie. And the last on the fence topic is just when it comes to Pip, Gary, and Cordelia, you don't really get a backstory with them. We get a lot of build for Chris's family, but when it comes to these people who also join his journey, you don't really learn much about them. I mean, you get an idea that Pip has definitely lived quite a bit, to the point where if he does get to become human again, his family's probably dead. But as for Gary and Cordelia, it's not clear what time they may have came from, what was their wish and what happened. They're just characters added in who do add a little bit of funny. Pip even adds a little bit of heart because he starts to bond with Holly, but you don't really get as much as you would hope from them. especially considering the impact they potentially could have on you or they have on the film in general. But overall, is Candy Cane Lane a watch every year kind of movie? I wouldn't say that. However, compared to the usual churn we get at this time of year, it does feel like there's definitely more effort put into this beyond Prime wanting to get a piece of the holiday movie marketplace.